Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here today. Whether you're new or have been following along for a while, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. Today we're diving into something truly special, something that has the power to transform your life, faith in God. In a world full of uncertainty, stress, and endless distractions, it's easy to feel lost or unsure of where you're headed. But today, we're going to talk about how having faith in God can help everything in your life fall into place, no matter what you're going through right now. So if you're feeling stuck, struggling, or even just looking for a little bit of peace, you're in the right place. Grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's explore together how trusting in God can bring clarity, peace, and purpose into our lives. Ready to get started? Let's go. Introduction. Have faith in God and see everything fall into place. Life often presents us with moments of doubt, confusion, and even despair. We encounter obstacles that seem impossible to overcome, challenges that test our strength, and moments when the road ahead seems unclear. In those moments, it's easy to question whether things will ever get better, whether we're on the right path, or if we're just stuck in a never-ending cycle of struggle. But here's the thing, even in the darkest moments, there's a truth that we can hold on to, a truth that can change everything. Faith in God. When we have faith, everything begins to shift. Faith is not just about believing in God, it's about trusting that He is in control, even when we don't understand the plan. It's the confidence that no matter how messy or complicated life feels, God is working behind the scenes, putting everything into place in His perfect timing. This kind of faith is not passive, it's active. It changes the way we see the world, the way we respond to challenges, and the way we live our lives every single day. I know that when life feels overwhelming, it's hard to hold on to faith. We can start to feel like we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. We might question, why is this happening to me? Or why does it feel like everything is falling apart? But the truth is God has a plan. The difficulties you face today are not in vain, and the struggles you're experiencing are not a sign of abandonment. They are part of a bigger picture, one that God sees, even if we can't yet understand it. Having faith doesn't mean everything will be easy, and it doesn't mean that you won't face hardship. It means that despite the difficulties, you know deep down that God is with you, guiding you and shaping your life. When you trust in Him, even when things seem uncertain, you begin to see how He is working in ways that are beyond your comprehension. You start to notice the little moments of peace, the subtle signs of hope, and the unexpected blessings that come your way. And over time, you realize that God was placing everything exactly where it needed to be all along. So if you're struggling right now, if you're feeling lost or uncertain, remember this: have faith in God and watch as everything begins to fall into place. You may not see it now, but trust that in His perfect timing, God is orchestrating something beautiful in your life. It's not about the circumstances around you, but about trusting the one who holds it all in His hands. Keep your faith strong, keep your heart open, and let God show you how everything truly works together for your good. Section 1. Understanding faith. Faith is often misunderstood as something intangible or abstract, but in reality, it's one of the most powerful forces we can possess. It's the bedrock upon which we build our relationship with God. Without faith, we can't truly understand God's purpose for our lives. But what does it really mean to have faith in God? Is it just about believing He exists, or is there more to it? In the Bible, Hebrews 11:1 gives us a clear definition. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is not just a feeling or an idea. It's the assurance of things that have yet to come to pass, the confidence that God is working even when we can't see the results right now. It's believing in His plan for our lives, even when we don't know what the next step looks like. Faith requires trust, and trust is not just an intellectual agreement with God, but a heart-deep conviction that He is sovereign and good no matter what. One of the most remarkable aspects of faith is that it's often tested in times of uncertainty. When life feels shaky and everything around us seems to be crumbling, it's easy to lose sight of God's promises. But this is where the true strength of faith comes in. It's not about feeling good or secure all the time. It's about trusting God even when the way forward isn't clear. It's in those moments of doubt, when everything seems to be falling apart, that faith becomes most powerful. Think about the story of Abraham, one of the greatest examples of faith in the Bible. God promised Abraham that he would be the father of many nations, yet he was childless, and his wife Sarah was well beyond childbearing age. Still, Abraham trusted God. He didn't know how or when God's promise would come to pass, but he believed. And because of his faith, God fulfilled his promise, and Abraham became the father of Isaac, from whom many nations would come. Abraham didn't need to know the details. He only needed to trust in God's plan, which was far bigger than anything he could have imagined. Faith is a journey, and just like Abraham, we are all called to trust in God's promises, even when we don't have all the answers. It's about believing that God's plan is perfect, even when we can't see how it's going to unfold. That's the essence of faith. Trusting God, not based on what we can see or understand, but based on his unchanging character. Section 2. Trusting God's timing. One of the hardest parts of having faith in God is trusting in his timing. We live in a world that moves fast. We're used to getting things quickly, whether it's information, answers, or solutions. But God's timing is different. His timing is perfect, even when it doesn't line up with our expectations. And this is where trust comes in. There's a certain peace that comes from knowing that God is in control of the timing of our lives. It's easy to get frustrated when things don't happen as quickly as we want, but God's sense of timing is flawless. While we may want things to happen right now, God knows exactly when the right time is for everything to unfold. He sees the bigger picture, the circumstances, the people, and the events that need to align for his purpose to be fully realized in our lives. Sometimes we need to wait for God to open the right doors at the right time. And though waiting can be difficult, it's in the waiting that our faith is strengthened. Take the example of Joseph, another figure in the Bible who learned to trust God's timing. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, and for years he endured hardship. It seemed as though everything was going wrong for him, but God was with him through it all, shaping him for a greater purpose. Joseph didn't understand why he was going through such trials, but in the end, God's timing was perfect. He was placed in a position of power in Egypt, where he could save not only his family but an entire nation from famine. Looking back, it was clear that everything Joseph went through was part of God's plan, even though it didn't make sense at the time. When we face difficult situations, we often question why things aren't happening the way we want them to. We ask, why is this taking so long? Or why isn't this working out for me? But the truth is that God is working in the waiting. Just because things aren't happening on our timeline doesn't mean they won't happen. God is never late. He's always right on time. His timing is a reflection of his love for us and his desire to see us grow and thrive. It's essential to remember that the waiting period is not a time of inactivity, but a time of preparation. While we wait for God's plan to unfold, he is working on us, building our character, and preparing us for what's ahead. This waiting period allows us to develop patience, trust, and resilience. We learn to lean on God, knowing that he's in control even when we can't see the end result. Trusting God's timing requires surrender. It's about releasing our need for control and trusting that God will do what is best for us in the perfect moment. As we continue to trust his timing, we begin to see how everything falls into place, just as he promised. So even when the path ahead seems unclear, remember that God is not only with you, but that he is guiding you in his perfect time. When you look back, you'll see how his timing was always right. Section 3. Overcoming doubt. Doubt is one of the most powerful forces that can hold us back from fully trusting in God. It's the voice that whispers in our minds, asking whether God will truly come through for us. It's the fear that our prayers aren't being heard, the insecurity that we're not good enough, or the belief that our circumstances are too big for even God to handle. If you've ever felt that way, you're not alone. Every person of faith has experienced doubt at some point in their lives, and it's something that can be difficult to overcome. The key to overcoming doubt is not pretending that it doesn't exist. It's natural to have moments of uncertainty, especially when things are hard. But the important thing is not to let doubt control you or dictate your actions. Doubt, when left unchecked, can paralyze us and keep us from taking the next step in faith. But God does not want us to live in fear or hesitation. He wants us to boldly trust him, even when our minds are filled with doubt. In the Bible, we see countless examples of people who struggled with doubt but ultimately overcame it through faith. One powerful example is the story of Peter walking on water. In Matthew 14:28-31, Peter asked Jesus if he could come to him on the water. Jesus called him out onto the sea, and Peter began walking toward him. But when he saw the wind and the waves, doubt crept in. Peter began to sink, crying out for Jesus to save him. Jesus immediately reached out, caught him, and asked, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" This story is powerful because it reminds us that doubt is not unusual, but what matters is how we respond to it. Peter's faith started strong, but when he focused on the storm around him, his doubt took over. The moment he called out to Jesus, however, his faith was renewed. Jesus didn't leave him to drown in his doubt. He rescued him. Just like Peter, we may experience doubt in our walk of faith, but we must remember to call on Jesus in those moments. It's okay to have doubts, but don't let them cause you to take your eyes off of God. When you feel your faith wavering, pray. Talk to God about your doubts and ask Him to strengthen your belief. God is patient and understanding, and He will always help you in your moments of weakness. Overcoming doubt is not about achieving perfection in our faith. It's about continuing to trust God, even when things aren't going as we expected. It's about holding on to His promises, even when the evidence seems to say otherwise. As we lean into God, we can find the strength to face our doubts and allow them to become opportunities for our faith to grow stronger. Section 4. Faith in action. Faith is not meant to be something we simply believe in our hearts, but something we live out every day. It's easy to say that we have faith when things are going well, when life feels stable and secure. But the true test of faith comes when we are faced with challenges, when things get tough, and when the future is uncertain. That's when our faith needs to move from belief to action. Faith in action means living as though we truly believe that God is in control, that He is working all things for our good, and that His promises are true. It means trusting God enough to step out of our comfort zones and follow where He leads, even when it's difficult. It's about putting our trust into practice, not just in words. In the Bible, James 2:17 tells us, "Faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." This verse teaches us that faith is not just about believing, but also about doing. True faith moves us to action. It compels us to live according to God's will and to serve others, even when it's not easy. It might mean helping someone in need when we don't feel like we have enough ourselves, or it might mean staying patient and kind in the face of adversity. Consider the story of the woman with the issue of blood in Mark 5:25-34. She had been suffering for years, and nothing seemed to help. But when she heard about Jesus, she believed that if she could just touch His cloak, she would be healed. Her faith prompted her to act. She made her way through the crowds, reached out, and touched Jesus' garment, and immediately she was healed. Jesus, acknowledging her faith, said, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." This woman's faith was not passive. It didn't just stay in her heart. She acted on it. She believed that Jesus could heal her, and her actions reflected that belief. She didn't let fear or doubt stop her. She took a step of faith. And that's what we are called to do as well, to put our faith into action. Faith in action doesn't always look like grand, dramatic gestures. Sometimes it's simply about trusting God in the small, everyday moments. It's choosing to believe that He is at work, even when things don't seem to be going as planned. It's about stepping out in obedience, trusting that God will guide us, and believing that He will provide what we need. When you live out your faith, you not only experience the power of God's presence in your life, but you also become a witness to others. People will see the way you live and be inspired by your trust in God. They will see that you don't rely on your own strength, but on the power of God to get you through. And that's when faith becomes contagious, when it moves from just being something personal to something that impacts the world around us. In the end, faith isn't just a belief we hold, it's a way of living. It's about taking God at His word, stepping out in obedience, and trusting that He will guide our steps. And when we live our faith in action, we begin to see everything fall into place, just as God promised. Section 5. Miracles of faith. One of the most incredible aspects of having faith in God is the reality of miracles. It's easy to think of miracles as events that happen only in the Bible or in stories from long ago. But the truth is, miracles still happen today. When we live with faith, we open ourselves up to the miraculous power of God working in our lives. Faith doesn't just lead us to endure. It invites us to experience the incredible, the impossible, and the unexplainable. Miracles are often a result of deep faith in God's ability to do what we cannot. In the Bible, we see miracle after miracle performed through faith. Jesus healed the sick, cast out demons, raised the dead, and provided in ways that defied natural law. But what's so remarkable about these miracles is that they didn't happen because of the people's strength, ability, or understanding. They happened because of their faith in Jesus. Take, for example, the story of the blind man in John 9:1-12. When Jesus passed by, he saw the man who had been blind from birth. The disciples asked Jesus if the man's blindness was caused by his own sin or his parents' sin. But Jesus responded, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." Then Jesus spat on the ground, made mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes, telling him to wash in the pool of Siloam. The man obeyed, and when he washed, he was able to see. This miraculous healing took place because the man acted in faith. He didn't understand why Jesus asked him to do this strange thing, but he trusted Jesus enough to follow his instructions. His faith led to a physical transformation, but even more importantly, it led to a spiritual awakening. The man's faith in Jesus opened the door to a miracle in his life. Today, we may not always see miracles happen in such dramatic ways, but that doesn't mean they aren't happening. A miracle is anything that defies natural explanation, and often it comes in the form of small, everyday blessings that we might overlook. It's a job opportunity when you were about to give up. It's healing after a long illness. It's the restoration of a broken relationship, or it's the unexpected peace in the midst of a storm. These are the miracles that come when we put our trust in God and believe that He has the power to change our circumstances. Miracles don't always come in the way we expect, but they always come when we are willing to have faith. And sometimes the greatest miracle of all is the transformation that happens in our hearts as we learn to trust God more deeply. If you're waiting for a miracle in your life, keep holding on to your faith. Keep praying, keep believing, and keep trusting that God can do the impossible. When you allow faith to lead you, you'll see God work in ways you never thought possible. Section 6. Living a life fulfilled through faith. Living a life of faith isn't just about surviving challenges or waiting for miracles. It's about living with purpose, peace, and fulfillment every single day. When we have faith in God, our lives are transformed. Faith gives us direction, fills us with hope, and allows us to experience true joy, even in difficult circumstances. It's not about living a life without problems, but about living with the assurance that no matter what comes our way, God is with us, guiding us, and providing for us. The peace that comes from faith is unlike any other peace. It's the peace that surpasses understanding. As described in Philippians 4:7, when we place our trust in God, we experience a deep sense of calm and assurance, knowing that He is in control. This peace isn't dependent on our circumstances. Whether we're going through a storm or enjoying a season of calm, it's rooted in our trust in God's promises. Faith also gives us purpose. When we know that God has a plan for our lives, we can face each day with a sense of direction. We no longer have to wander aimlessly, wondering what the next step will be. We can confidently move forward, knowing that God is leading us and that He will equip us for whatever lies ahead. Our faith in God's plan for us becomes the lens through which we view the world, giving us the clarity and vision we need to live intentionally and with passion. A life of faith also brings fulfillment. The world offers many ways to try to fill the void we feel inside, whether it's through success, wealth, relationships, or achievements. But none of these things can truly satisfy us. True fulfillment comes when we live in alignment with God's will, when we trust Him and live out His purpose for our lives. It's in serving others, loving unconditionally, and trusting that God is using our lives for a greater good that we find our deepest sense of fulfillment. Jesus said in John chapter 10:10, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." This doesn't mean that we won't face hardships, but it does mean that with faith, we can experience a fullness of life that transcends the struggles we face. It's the joy of knowing that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. that we are living according to God's perfect plan, and that He is at work in every area of our lives. Faith doesn't just give us a reason to live, it gives us the strength and the courage to live fully. When we embrace a life of faith, we don't just endure the challenges of life, we thrive in them. We discover that we are capable of more than we thought, that God has equipped us for every good work, and that with Him, nothing is impossible. So if you're wondering if there's more to life than just surviving, the answer is yes. Through faith, you can live a life that is full of purpose, full of peace, and full of the joy that comes from knowing you are walking in God's will. When we live by faith, we experience life in its fullest, most beautiful form, knowing that everything falls into place as we trust God. Section 7, Seeing Everything Fall into Place. One of the most reassuring aspects of faith in God is the powerful truth that when we trust Him, everything falls into place. It doesn't mean that life will always be free from challenges or that we will understand every twist and turn along the way. But it does mean that in the end, God's plan for our lives is greater than anything we could have orchestrated ourselves. His timing, His direction, and His provision are always perfect, even when we cannot see it. When we surrender our lives to God and trust His plan, we begin to see how everything is intricately woven together. What seemed like chaos or confusion in the moment suddenly starts to make sense in the larger picture. Relationships, opportunities, challenges, and even the times of waiting, all of them are part of a beautiful tapestry that God is crafting for us. It's as if the pieces of the puzzle finally begin to fit together, and we see how God has been working behind the scenes all along. Take the story of Joseph, whose life was full of trials, betrayal, and hardship. He was sold into slavery by his brothers, thrown into prison, and forgotten by those he helped. Yet, through it all, Joseph continued to trust in God's plan for his life. He held on to his faith, even when circumstances didn't make sense. Eventually, Joseph was raised to a position of great power in Egypt, and he was able to save his family and an entire nation from famine. Looking back, Joseph could see how everything he went through was part of God's larger plan. The pain, the waiting, the rejection, it all served to prepare him for the role God had destined for him. Joseph's story is a powerful reminder that God's plan is always unfolding, even when we don't see it. It's easy to get frustrated when things aren't happening on our timeline or when we can't understand why things are going the way they are. But when we trust God and remain faithful, we begin to see how each part of our journey is leading us to the place where God wants us to be. When we have faith in God, we don't need to control every detail or have all the answers. We can rest in the confidence that God is working things out for our good. Even when things seem uncertain, when doors seem closed, and when obstacles seem insurmountable, God is behind the scenes, orchestrating the events of our lives with perfect wisdom. And in His time, everything will fall into place. This doesn't mean that we won't experience struggles. It doesn't mean that life will always be easy or painless. But what it does mean is that when we trust God, we can have peace in knowing that He is in control. As we move forward in faith, we begin to witness how God makes things come together in ways we never expected. Our faith allows us to see God's hand at work, and we come to realize that the journey, with all its ups and downs, was necessary to bring us to the place where He has called us to be. Section 8, Living with a Purpose and Peace. Faith in God not only transforms our understanding of life's challenges, but also fills us with a deep sense of purpose and peace. When we trust God with our lives, we find that our days are no longer driven by uncertainty or fear, but by a firm belief that He has a purpose for each of us. This purpose gives us clarity and direction, even when the road ahead is unclear. One of the most beautiful aspects of faith is that it gives us the peace that comes from knowing that we are exactly where God wants us to be. It's the peace that comes from trusting that God is in control, even when everything around us feels chaotic. We no longer have to rely on our own strength or understanding to navigate life. Instead, we can rest in the assurance that God has already mapped out the way. In Philippians 4:6-7, Paul writes, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." This is the kind of peace that comes when we place our trust fully in God, It's a peace that transcends circumstances, a peace that surpasses the understanding of the world. This peace isn't the absence of problems, but the presence of God in the midst of them. When we trust God, we are able to experience peace that guards our hearts and minds, even when life is filled with uncertainties. Living with purpose is another powerful outcome of faith. When we believe that God has a plan for our lives, we approach each day with a sense of meaning and direction. We are no longer aimlessly wandering through life, hoping that things will work out. Instead, we know that God has placed us in the right place at the right time, and we have a unique role to play in His kingdom. Whether it's in our families, our workplaces, or our communities, God has a purpose for us that goes far beyond our own desires. This purpose doesn't have to be grand or extraordinary in the eyes of the world. It's often in the small acts of faithfulness that we find our greatest purpose. Whether it's being kind to others, helping someone in need, or simply being present for those who need support. When we walk in faith, every moment becomes an opportunity to fulfill God's purpose for our lives. And when we live with faith, we are also filled with peace. There's a deep sense of peace that comes when we know we are walking in the will of God. It's the peace that comes from knowing that God's plan is perfect, even when we can't see the end result. It's the peace that comes from trusting in God's promises, knowing that He is with us every step of the way. Living with purpose in peace is the result of having faith in God. When we trust Him, we begin to see how every aspect of our lives, our work, our relationships, our struggles, fits into His greater plan. We no longer have to chase after fleeting things or worry about the future because we know that God has a purpose for us that will bring peace and fulfillment. So if you're feeling uncertain about your purpose or struggling with anxiety about the future, remember this. When you place your faith in God, He will give you the peace to rest in His plan, and He will show you the purpose He has for your life. With God, everything falls into place, just as it was always meant to. Conclusion: trusting God to see everything fall into place. As we come to the end of this journey together, one truth remains clear. When we place our faith in Him, everything truly falls into place. Life can be unpredictable, and we will all face moments of doubt, fear, and uncertainty. But through faith, we are given the strength to endure, the courage to move forward, and the peace that surpasses all understanding. Faith is not just a fleeting feeling. It is a deep-rooted trust in the one who created us, the one who has a plan for our lives. We've seen throughout this journey how faith empowers us to understand that God's timing is perfect, that His plans are greater than our own, and that He will always provide for us in ways we cannot imagine. Faith gives us the ability to overcome doubt, to live with purpose, and to experience the miraculous in our daily lives. When we trust in God, we allow His hand to guide us, shaping our lives into something beautiful, something far beyond what we could have created on our own. As we walk in faith, we will encounter struggles, and we may still face moments when life doesn't make sense. But it's in those moments of difficulty that our faith is refined. When we trust God with the details of our lives, when we surrender our desires, our fears, and our plans into His hands, He works everything out according to His perfect will. It's easy to become discouraged when things don't seem to be going our way, but faith teaches us to trust that God is working in ways we cannot see. Just as He orchestrates the universe, He is at work in every aspect of our lives. Even when the path is unclear or the circumstances seem impossible, God is arranging the pieces of the puzzle to reveal His plan for us in His perfect timing. As you move forward in your own life, remember that faith is not about waiting for everything to be perfect. It's about trusting that God is with you every step of the way. It's about believing that He is working all things for your good, even when you cannot see it. Trust that God is in control. Trust that He has a plan for you. And trust that when you follow Him in faith, everything will fall into place. The key is to never give up. Keep praying, keep trusting, and keep believing that God has your best interests at heart. Sometimes the breakthrough is just around the corner, and your perseverance in faith will lead you to see everything come together in ways you never imagined. When we trust God, we align ourselves with His will, and in doing so, we allow His perfect plan to unfold in our lives. So no matter where you are today, hold on to this truth. Have faith in God. Trust that His plan for you is greater than anything you could have ever planned for yourself. And remember, no matter the challenges, the doubts, or the struggles you may face, God is with you. He is working, He is leading, and in His time, everything will fall into place. Keep your faith strong and watch as God unfolds a beautiful story for your life, one that is filled with purpose, peace, and the incredible miracles that only He can bring.